Good morning, everyone. You can hear me?
Good morning.
Yes,
Yes,
right.
we can hear you. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. Just a minute. Thank you for joining us today in AML training session. AML and CFT is important part for our responsibility, and staying update is a key of protect our business and staying compliant with regulation. Just a minute. Okay. I'm pleased to introduce our trainer, Mr. Suhail Akbar. Suhail Akbar is a CBUAE and FSRA approved compliance manager with 16 years experience with AML CFT sanction and regulatory audit. He's currently head of compliance department at UHY, chaired accounts working with companies regulated by CBUAE, DIFC, ADGM, and VARA. Welcome, Suhail.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aida, for the introduction. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. I appreciate your time and participation as we dive deep into this session. This session is designed to give you introduction about AML CFT. Our responsibilities is creative free zones. So what are the responsibilities? We will talk about the responsibilities. We will talk about the AML CFT, that what is money laundering, what is terrorism financing, what is proliferation financing. Then we will talk about the regulatory regime, that what are the laws in the UAE. We will also talk about the FATF. What is FATF, Financial Action Task Force? How is it impacting the UAE, and what the UAE response is towards the FATF? Then we will talk about the different laws and regulations in the UAE. We will also discuss the KYC process that you are conducting on your clients when you are onboarding them at the time of establishing the company. Then we will talk about the processes that the compliance department performs when you provide them and supply them with the information on the customers that you conduct, like the KYC, the CDD, or the due diligence process that you perform. So we will be talking about the sanctions screening process. We will talk about the risk assessment process, and we will also discuss that how important it is to collect accurate information from the customer so that your compliance department can perform effective and adequate due diligences, sanction screening, risk assessment. And if there are any suspicious activities or suspicious actors are connected to the companies that you are establishing for your client, we will discuss that how we should identify them, how should we be reporting them, to whom we should report them. And then finally, we will talk about record keeping requirements. We will also discuss politically exposed persons. We will talk about tipping off. And last but not least, we will discuss about the penalties that the regulators they can implement on creative city free zone in case we are identified as non-compliant with their regulations. I will appreciate and encourage you, if you have any questions, do let me know. You can ask questions so that we are moving forward with a clear concept. Yeah, so let's just begin with money laundering definition. For so I yeah just a moment. Okay, so what, in your opinion, is money laundering, and why the criminals they get involved in money laundering? So many of you would be knowing that what is money laundering and why the criminals are doing money laundering, but sometimes we do not have it, like we do not give attention that why, like most of us, we do not give attention to the fact that why criminals need to do money laundering. And what is actually the money laundering process? What are the different types and schemes of money laundering? So as I said earlier, today we will be discussing that while establishing companies at Creative City Free Zone, we need to understand that how the companies that we establish for the customers, and then how the creative city, and in the broader context, how the UAE gets vulnerable to financial crimes if we do not take proper due diligence measures and implement the controls that the regulators and the UAE government who want us to implement it. So basically, money laundering is the process of disguising the origin of illegally obtained funds to make them appear legitimate. There are basically 22 different types of crimes, which we call predicate offense or underlying crimes, that have been identified by the Financial Action Task Force. They have also been acknowledged by the UAE government that these are the underlying crimes, or the predicate offenses for the crime of money laundering. Like, for example, bribery is there, corruption is there, tax evasion is there. Then we have environmental crimes, cyber crimes are there, counterfeiting is there. So these are the different types of crimes, and overall there are 22 different types of crimes. When somebody gets involved into these crimes and the crime generate for them substantial amount of money or funds, then later on in the next stage, these criminals, they want to use these funds. They are huge in amount. So they face difficulty in using it without having proper documentations. So what they want to do, and what they need for this, they create such schemes so that the funds appear legitimate for anyone with whom these people are dealing, or with whom these people they make the deals, or when they are using these funds. Also to the authorities. So when there is any investigation happening and they ask them, where did you bring this money from? They create. Hello? Hello? Am I audible? Is Aida?
Yeah,
Yes, sir,
you're
you are.
audible.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
So
you are.
thank you so much. So when, as I was discussing, is that when they are using this money, and also for the authorities, they want to show that the money is generated through legitimate sources. For this, they pass through different types of schemes, and these schemes are known as, or called, money laundering schemes or processes. So there are three different stages through which the criminal they pass. There is a lot of sound in the background. If you could
Please
mute.
keep your
Yeah.
mic off, please.
Yes.
حولك التسويق.
Yeah. So there are basically three different stages through which the illicit actors or the criminals they pass the funds that they have generated through illegal activities. And among them, the first one is the placement stage, which is the introduction of illicit funds into the financial system. So like what they can do, this is the initial stage where illicit funds derived from criminal activities such as fraud, corruption, smuggling, or tax evasion is introduced into the financial system. Now, how does it relate to the company that we form in Creative City Free Zone? So like, for example, let's say somebody has been involved in tax evasion in their country, and now they are doing money laundering. Just giving you one example is that they will create a company, they will open a bank account for that company, and then they will transfer those dirty money that in the account which they have opened for the company they set up in Creative City Free Zone. So that is the first stage of money laundering, which we call the placement stage of money laundering. So a criminal may attempt to set up a company as a front company to inject illicit funds under the guise of legal business capital. That is the first stage. Then we have the layering stage, concealing the illicit origin through complex transactions. This stage involves moving the fund through multiple layers of corporate structure to obscure their origin. Now, they do not open only one single company. They have got huge amount of money. They have the resources. So they will open so many different types of companies, different layers will be there, and then they will transfer the money from the company they created at the first stage, and then they inject the money into the account, which the stage was the placement stage. Then they will transfer that money from the first company into another company's account, and so on. This process will continue, and the companies are not opened in one country, but they are opened in so many different cities, so many different countries. So what actually hampers it, and why are they doing it? They are doing it because when they transfer money from one company to another company's account, from one country to another country, they basically want to obscure the audit trail. They want to dilute the audit trail, that where the money or the funds are originating from. So if authorities in the UAE, for example, they are investigating some funds that have been generated through money laundering, they find out that, okay, these funds have come from another company, and then that company is established in another country. So it will be difficult for the law enforcement agencies to reach out to the authorities in that country and request documents, supporting documents, do background checks. These people can claim that we have legitimate businesses in that country, and we are generating these funds from those legitimate businesses. So that is the second stage of money laundering. Again, there is too much of noise in the background.
I'm trying to mute everyone. Just a minute.
Okay. All right. So once a company is set up, the criminal might open multiple bank accounts in different names or jurisdiction. When we say jurisdiction, we are referring to different countries. In short, they will get engaged in frequent changes in the ownership or shareholder structures. They will change the ownership, they will change the UBOs, and the shareholders will also be changed. They use the company to issue or receive fake invoices or shell contracts to justify movement of funds. So they will create fake documents, fake invoices will be issued, fake contracts will be signed, claiming that they are signing these contracts because they get involved in different types of business activities. But in actual, there are no movement of goods happening. It's only to show that yes, we are involved in business, and it is an active company. Then integration stage comes in. The third stage, reintroducing the funds as legitimate wealth. So in this final stage, the laundered money re-enters into the economy, appearing as legitimate business income or investment. Relevance to the company formation, that how is it relevant to company formation that we set up in creative city free zone? So the criminal may use the company to invest in real estate, in trade, or in services. Disguise criminal proceeds as legitimate business revenue or profit from consulting or services. Sell the company or its asset to third parties to realize real money. Now what happens? I'll give you an example. Let's say gold is originated, gold is mined in African country, then the gold is shipped to, for example, to Turkey. They have established companies, and funds from illegal activities is sent to the African country through the Hawala system. We know, most of us, we know the Hawala system. If anyone is not familiar with, let me know. I can explain that to you. What is the Hawala system? But it is a process outside the legitimate banking system.
What do you want to know more than very straightforward? Exactly. All that you want.
Somebody's hello.
Sorry, you can
Besides,
continue.
someone is having some confusion, so I can explain that.
Sure. If anyone having any question, they can raise their hands.
All right, then, so the funds are transferred to the African countries, and they purchase gold with those dirty money that they have generated through illegal sources. Then they purchase gold. The golds are shipped to other countries. For example, they ship it to Turkey. They have established so many companies there. The gold is purchased. Then the gold is refined there. Then that gold is sent to, for example, to Hong Kong. They sell the gold, and then they buy some other products from China. They send those products to another country, sell it, and take out the clean money. So that is like in the first place, they introduced the gold, they introduced the dirty money into the gold. They shipped the gold, refined it. The gold is sold in Hong Kong. And then from Hong Kong, they send the money to China to purchase goods and products. And the goods are then sold in another country. So they received clean money. Apparently, it is a clean money, but the origin of the funds are still dirty. Then they invest that money into some other business ventures. They buy themselves real estate and properties. And that is how the third stage of money laundering, which is the integration stage, is completed. So overall, this is what we call money laundering. As I said in the beginning, the process through which the criminal passed the dirty money is called money laundering. That's it. Then so while the sales function is focused on business development, obviously you are focused on business development, bringing in more customers who can establish companies at Creative City Free Zone. It is essential for us to remain vigilant, conduct KYC due diligence checks, and escalate suspicious profiles and customers and their activities. Do not prioritize sales targets over compliances, because if we prioritize sales target instead of and we do not have an insight into what the customer is bringing in, what type of customers we are dealing with, we do not know their identity, then we may overlook signs of money laundering and other financial crimes that we are going to discuss throughout this session. And we may be vulnerable to financial crime that can have consequences not only for the Creative City Free Zone, uh, but as well as for the individuals who are involved in these operations. Then always flag unusual behavior even during inquiry or pre-information stages. So you will be facing the clients where the client comes to you, they are asking you questions about how to set up a company and so many other things. Like they may ask you questions related to the record keeping requirement, information that you collect. At that time, if you feel suspicious, you are required to escalate it to the compliance. The compliance will investigate it, and if deemed, then they will further escalate it to the financial intelligence unit. We will talk in detail about the red flags and other matters, and we will check how we can identify the suspicious activities. So we talked about the predicate offenses. What are predicate offenses? I already explained to you. These are the underlying crimes that generate illicit proceeds or funds or money, which are later laundered to hide their illicit or illegal origin. These offenses include serious crimes such as drug trafficking. Day before yesterday, just yesterday I was reading Khaleej Times, and some criminals were being arrested at in Abu Dhabi at the airport over smuggling drugs worth of 1.5 million dirham. Then corruption, fraud, embezzlement, human trafficking, smuggling, and tax evasion, etc. Under both international standards and UAE laws, any serious criminal activity that results in financial gain can be treated as predicate offense. The term predicate offense emphasizes that money laundering stems from another primary criminal activity. So the primary criminal activity are the 22 predicate offenses. So why do criminals do money laundering? We talked about it. Criminals launder the dirty money to disguise the origin of illegally obtained funds so they can use them without alerting the authorities. The primary goal are to avoid detection by financial institution or law enforcement, use the funds freely in legitimate economy to buy property, start business, or invest, protect themselves from asset confiscation, investigation, and or prosecution. Obviously, if the authorities they come to know that the funds someone is dealing with or someone is having, they are generated from illegal activities. In the UAE, we have different laws. We will talk about it that requires the confiscation, freezing of those funds. So without laundering the proceeds of crime would be too risky to spend or invest due to their traceability. That is why the criminal, they need to launder the money first and then only use them. Then connection between predicate offenses and money laundering. So money laundering is a direct consequence of predicate offenses. People they do or they get involved in money laundering once they get involved in predicate offenses. The initial criminal act, for example, drug trafficking, as I said, it is a predicate offense, produces illegal funds. And laundering is the method used to make those funds appear legitimate. The laundering process typically involves, as I discussed and we talked about it in detail, placement, layering, and integration to separate the money from its criminal origin. That is why the funds are passed through different stages. This connection is so integral that most AML regulation, including Federal Law Number 20 of 2018, in the UAE consider money laundering as independent crime. A person can be prosecuted for laundering even if the predicate offense is not proven in the court, as long as there is reasonable suspicion that the fund came from unlawful activity. So basically, when there is a suspicion that the funds a person is having, a company is having, a group of individuals they are having, there is a suspicion about those funds that they have originated from illegal activities, even though if it is not yet confirmed that what the actual criminal activity is, still the funds will be confiscated from them if identified by the law enforcement agencies or authorities. Now, in that case, the person who are involved and from whom the funds have been confiscated, they are required to demonstrate the legal origin, of the funds that have been confiscated from them. If they are successful in demonstrating the legitimacy of the funds, then the funds will be released to them. Otherwise, they will be confiscated by the government authorities in the UAE. That is what the UAE federal law says, and then the subsequent laws for the implementation of these law, the federal law. Now we have a case study. We will talk about the case studies also, that how companies can be used for the purpose of money laundering, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing. But prior to moving to discuss the case studies, I would like to check if anyone is having any question. Plus, I need your attention because in order to make it more interactive, I may be choosing someone from your side. And I will be asking questions. So yeah, let's ask questions first. So making it more interesting. There is a participant called consultant. May I know who is behind this ID consultant? Would you please open your mic? Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, consultant. Someone is there with the name consultant.
No, it's Ishwar. It's showing.
Not
Yeah,
Ishwar,
it's me. Hello.
Yes. May I know who is this?
This is Rabia from Finab Consultant.
Okay.
Finab
So
Corporate Service Providers.
all right. Welcome. You are in Creative City.
I'm taking the webinar from Finab Consultants.
All right. Welcome. So my question
Thank you
is,
so much.
yeah, Rubia, my question from you is that we talked about the predicate offenses, and we discussed that there are 22 different types of predicate offenses. So in your opinion, have you ever encountered, like you are a consultant and you are helping people to establish companies, have you ever identified any suspicious activity and then have related that activity to any predicate offense?
As of now, I haven't encountered like that kind of suspicious activities.
Okay, so you are since when you are working in the consultancy firm? Are you a compliance officer?
No, I'm not from the compliance officers. I'm working since last year, 2024. Almost it's a 1 year now. And I'm working on the company formations. And there is a team for the KYC. So, or KYC team handles the all.
All right. Okay, fine. So we will move forward, and I will keep choosing people to answer some questions to make it more interactive and ensure that everyone is properly attending the session. Thank you. So company formation used for financial crime, the technique used, like now this is a case study. Somebody has established a company and then they have used the company for financial crimes. technique used were formation of anonymous shell companies in multiple jurisdictions, use of nominee directors and UBO concealment. So the UBO were being concealed, and then nominee directors were being appointed. You do not know if those nominee directors were the actual UBO or what was the relationship of those directors with the company and with the UBO. Then high volume of international wire transfer with no clear commercial justification. So huge amount of money were poured into the company's account with no justification, commercial justification, that what is the commercial reason behind transferring those funds into the company's account. So millions in suspicious funds were moved through company structures designed to obscure ownership and purpose. Tens of companies were used to open accounts and move funds, often without real business activity, making detection extremely difficult. Now, you can say that once we open company, we do not go after that person and we do not check how much amount of money they have put into the company's account and so on. But the responsibility comes in when we are renewing their licenses. When we renew their licenses, we must take from them proper justification of the activities that they are performing in their company. Like, for example, if you ask me what sort of documents you would be requiring from those people who are establishing company through Creative City Free Zone, so I would say that I would ask them to provide audited financial statements so that I can check that how much are the liabilities in the company, what is the capital, what is the investment, who are the companies they are dealing with, and then I will have a background check of those companies with whom they have dealt with to ensure that their deals are happening with legitimate companies who have established businesses, they have established offices, then they have their websites available. I will check if they are in the UAE or outside the UAE. Also, I will check in which country they are. Are those countries high risk countries, low risk countries, medium risk countries? So all those information I have to collect to ensure that the people we are dealing with, they are legitimate and they are not involved in any criminal activity. Plus, here it is important to give you another example. If you have ever heard about Panama Leaks, so Panama Leaks was an incident where in Panama, the criminals, they had established hundreds and thousands of companies, shell companies, no actual commercial activities were happening in those companies. The politically exposed persons and other criminals, they would transfer money into the accounts opened for those shell companies, and then they would use it for purchasing properties. So many politically exposed persons were identified into that. Now, the entire purpose of having this session arranged by Creative City is to enlighten you that how important it is for us to have an adequate due diligence process on the companies that we establish in the Creative City Free Zone. This will help us to protect not only ourselves, but the Creative City Free Zones and the UAE reputation as a whole, that the UAE is not helping the criminals and they are taking strict action against those who are involved in criminal activities. So this was about money laundering, predicate offenses, and then a case scenario. This is another case scenario, layered offshore companies and asset integration. So use of multiple layers of offshore companies that are established outside a jurisdiction, structuring of funds through fake joint venture and consulting agreements, funds then integrated via luxury property, art, and entertainment asset. So the summary is illicit funds were funneled through complex offshore entities and layered accounts to clean the money and reintroduce it through high value purchases across multiple jurisdictions. So let me give you a real life example that I encountered is that we had a client, we were doing audit on that client. The client had established companies in another country, and those companies, they were the owners of the companies they established here in the UAE. So basically the company that was established in another country that was owned by another layer of company, and finally the owner of all those company was a foundation. So when we checked the UBO details of the foundation, we could not identify who are the UBOs. There were only directors. And when we collected the details of the directors, we did through we did thorough investigation. We conducted a process which is sanction screening and then open source intelligence. We found out that the owner of the company was a politically exposed person. They did not share the information with us, but through the open source intelligence, we identified that the owner of the company was a politically exposed person, and that person was moving money from those companies into the account of the company they established in the UAE. Finally, we did not do business with them and we reported them. So that is just a real life example that happened. There are so many, but there is one among them. Now, do you have any question, guys? Miss Aida, any question? Could you please check?
Hello, everyone. Do you have any question? You can raise your hands.
Hi,
Okay.
ma'am. Until now,
Yeah.
no, thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
All right. Fine. So moving forward, the next topic is what is terrorism financing? So terrorism financing is basically like we see in many countries around us in the Middle East and then in other countries, is that people, there are criminals, there are terrorists, there are individual terrorists are there are uh, organized groups are there, organizations are there, like for example, ISIS and others, etc. So they need money for the terrorist activities that they do in different countries. And then there are people who are supplying them these funds so that they can execute these activities, illicit activities or heinous activities of terrorism. So the provision or collection of fund to support the terrorist act or organization is called terrorism financing. The act is called terrorism, and then the provision of fund for the terrorist act is called terrorism financing. The funds that are supplied for the terrorist activities may originate from legitimate sources or illegal sources. Like, for example, I gave donation, but I do not know that for what purpose the donation is going to be used. Now, I'm giving the donation and the origin of the fund is legitimate. I have received a salary. I have received a portion of income from my business or from some other legitimate sources. I give it, but I do not know that these people are going to use it for terrorist activity. Now, this is the legitimate source of funds that is being supplied for terrorist activities. So this is, and then we have illegal activities like it was published and it was reported in the news that the ISIS organization, they are extracting oil in Syria from the wells which they illegally occupied, and then they were selling those oils to different people. So the fund they generated, they were used for the daily usage, for purchasing the weapons, for recruiting people, for paying the salaries of the recruiters, for paying to the widows of those terrorists who died in the war. So that is what we call terrorism financing through illegal sources. So how company formation can be misused for terrorism financing? So what the criminal will do, they will use shell or front companies. Shell companies are companies that do not have any business activities, and front companies are companies they are established in the front, they are doing business, but on the back of that business, illegal operations are happening. So that is called a front company. Complex structures to hide the UPOs, that who are the UPOs, they will establish different companies.
Suhail, you are mute.
Happened. I think you mute me and I was
No,
buzzing.
I didn't mute you. Okay.
You were probably muting everyone and I got mute as well. Anyways, so let me explain again. So what is terrorism financing? We are discussing terrorism financing. See, supporting the act of terrorism by supplying funds for the terrorist act to the terrorist or to the organization that is involved in the terrorist or terrorism activities is called terrorism financing. So there are individual terrorists are there are groups, there are organizations like the ISIS, and providing funds to these organizations to execute the terrorist or heinous activities is called terrorism financing. The funds that are supplied to these terrorists for the terrorism or for the terrorist activities may originate from both from legal sources and illegal sources. Let's suppose I have funds I receive from my salaries or from my business income, and I donate those funds to someone, but I do not know that they are going to use it in terrorist related activities. That, that means that the legal funds were being used for the illegal activities. Then it was reported that the ISIS, they occupied the petroleum resources in different countries. They extracted oil and then they sold those oil to support the terrorist activities that the ISIS was doing in many countries. So they use those money for their daily usage. They use those money to recruit people to purchase weapons. Also, it was reported that they paid money to the widows and to the children of those terrorists who died in the terrorist activities, during the terrorist activities or during the war that was happening in many countries. In that case, illegal funds were used for the terrorist activities. Now we are going to talk about that how company formation can be misused for the terrorist activities. So what the criminals do is that, as in the case of ISIS, if they are selling oil, they need companies. They will establish companies. They will transfer the ownership of the property that generated through illegal activities to that company, and then through that company they will sell the oil to other people who are purchasing the oil from them. They will generate funds, and then those funds are used to funnel the terrorist activity to support the terrorist activities. For this, they will use shell companies, they will use front companies. So shell companies are companies that do not have any business operations. And then front companies are companies that are created on the front, but on the back of those companies, illegal activities are happening. Then they create complex structures to hide the UBOs, that who are the actual UBOs. They have vague business activities to disguise the fund movement. You do not know what the actual commercial activities they are performing in the company. And then they leverage free zones for fast and opaque setup. They reach out to free zone so that they can quickly establish companies, and they have opaque setup where you do not know who are the actual UBOs, what are the commercial activities, where the funds are coming from, what is the purpose of establishing the business. Most of the time, the companies remain dormant. There are no business activities happening, but the funds are moving in the bank accounts. Sometimes under the table, they do not disclose it, and they move the fund through the hawala. Using legitimate earnings to fund the terrorism, as I explained, they open companies, they generate legitimate incomes, and then those incomes are used for operating illegal activities and illegal organizations. So this is what we call terrorism and terrorism financing. Here we have a case study: indirect support to armed groups through intermediaries. The technique used is creation of local intermediaries and shell service providers to handle payments, use of company funds to pay armed groups under the guise of security fees. What they do is that they will open security companies in the conflict affected areas, and then they will transfer money to those security companies, claiming that the security company is there operating to secure some people, some government officials, but actually they are transferring those funds to the terrorists, to the illicit actors. And they conceal this transaction through indirect transfer and false invoicing. So there will be false invoicing, like, for example, there will be expenses of the security companies, there will be salaries paid to the security personnel, and that is how they use the companies for the terrorist activities. A commercial company routed payment through intermediaries to maintain operations in a conflict zone. These funds were used to indirectly support terrorist organization masked as operational or security expenses. I have a real life a case based on this that I studied about, and it was like the funds were transferred to a country where there is conflict going on, there is war, and the company was saying that we are transferring the funds to security company who are providing security to government officials and other people there in that country. So any question, guys? Ms. Aida, any question?
Anyone having any question?
Super.
Anyone?
We are having almost 76 participants, and most of them, in fact, all of them are super genius that do not have any question. Okay.
None so far, okay.
All right. So next topic is proliferation financing. First of all, we have to understand what is proliferation. So proliferation is basically the development of weapons of mass destruction. There are different types of weapons. Like there are 3 different types of weapons that includes chemical weapons, biological weapons, and nuclear weapons are there. That comes under the definition of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. So what the illicit actors they do is that they illicit actors, like for example, there are terrorists are there, then there are countries that have been sanctioned by the United Nations, that have been sanctioned by the USA. And since UAE is a part and a member of the United Nations, a permanent member of the United Nations, so we have to comply with the United Nations Security Council resolution and also ensure that the illicit actors, they do not have access to those goods, products, chemicals, and other items which can help the illicit actor to develop these weapons of mass destruction, which include chemical weapons, which include biological weapons, and then nuclear weapons are there. Just yesterday, I was reading the news on Twitter, and I came across one information where people were killed in one country using the chemical weapons. So some toxic gas were being used to kill those people. Innocent people were being killed. Then, so this is what we call proliferation. Now there are countries who wants to, and then there are terrorists who wants to develop these weapons, and then they transfer money to acquire or to buy the goods, the items that are used for the developments and manufacturing of these weapons of mass destruction or for the purpose of proliferation. So that is what we call proliferation, and the funds that are transferred to procure these items is called proliferation financing. Proliferation financing is the act of providing funds or financial services used to facilitate the manufacture or acquisition of weapons of mass destruction, support transport, research, or development activities. Like in the case of COVID-19 virus, the COVID-19 virus itself is a biological weapon that can kill, and it in fact killed lots of human beings in a short period of time. So the proliferation financing is done to enable entities or individuals involved in the weapons of mass destruction development to operate despite sanctions. So there are people who are being sanctioned. There are countries that are being sanctioned by the United Nations and other countries, and of course by the UAE also, because we are implementing the United Nations Security Council resolutions in the UAE and sanctions in short. So these people who are sanctioned, they still try to obscure the money, that why they are transferring the money, where the funds have originated from, and to ensure that they disguise this so that nobody knows that why they are using, why they're transferring money, where the funds is coming from, and what are they going to use the funds for. So like in the case, in real life, there was a company that was transporting gold from one country to another country. They were selling the gold at cheaper prices than the market. And then the funds that they collected, they tried to convert those funds from one currency to another currency and send back that currency or funds to the country from where the gold came, and then transfer the funds to the country that tried to build the nuclear weapons. So it's a real life case. I cannot mention the names here, but it's a real life case that was identified and reported, and then the companies and the people were sanctioned. So FATF Financial Action Task Force, which is an international organization that keeps an eye on financial crimes, and it issues standards. It conducts mutual evaluation, or you can say in simple terms, it performs an audit on countries that up to what extent they are in compliance with the international standards. It has given a definition to the proliferation, that the act of providing financial services for the transfer and export of nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons, their means of delivery, and related material is called proliferation financing. Then, it's a case study is there. Logistic firm enabled restricted trade of goods. So what they did is that
I
they
guess,
used.
sorry to interrupt. I guess we have one question.
Yes, please. Mr. Abu Bakr Siddiq.
Abu Bakr
Yes.
Siddiq.
I have a tourism company actually, and I'm also doing corporate service recently. On my trade, we will be always doing international transfers, for the tourists, those who are going to a country, recently everybody is going to ABC or XYZ countries. So we'll be transferring the fund from this country to UAE to those destination countries. Yeah, right. So for the suppliers over there. So how we can find that the tourists actually not using these funds to for these kinds of activities, if that company is involved in such activities, how we can know that?
All right. So Abu Bakr, since you are also providing company formation services to your client, I would want to know, are you registered on the GoML?
No.
So first of all, you need to get registered on the GoML portal. Plus, you need to deploy a sanction screening system so that you can screen those people who are transferring funds for some reasons, whether for company formation or for some other reason, whether they are tourists. So you should screen those people and check if they are connected to any criminal activity, their names are on the sanctions list. So these are mandatory thing. And the first and foremost thing is that you must get registered on the GoML portal first. That is extremely important for you. I don't know if you have this activity on your license or not. If not, then you should have this activity on your license and then get registered on the GoML portal.
Okay, in fact, I don't have the details right now, for the portal. I hope you can get me on this also.
Yeah, we can help you, of course. In fact, Creative City also, the Miss Aida is there. She can also help you. But you must have this activity on the trade license if you are offering company formation services to your client, because the Ministry of Economy, being a regulator, they require all the company service provider to have a proper AML compliance program. You need to have proper policies, procedure. You need to have a risk management system. You need to have a sanction screening system. Otherwise, this is not permitted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question, guys? No question. Okay.
Yeah, there is no more question. You can go.
All right. Yeah. So we were talking about this logistic company case study. Use of logistic and freight forwarding subsidiary to conduct business with high-risk countries, transaction masked under generic trade descriptions, and indirect routing and document manipulation concealed end-use destination. So like, for example, right now, let's suppose Russia is under sanctions, and then there is a logistic company who is shipping goods from the UAE to Russia, for example. But the logistic company doesn't have any compliance function. They do not have any sanction screening software. They do not know about the dual use goods that are used for the purpose of development of weapons of mass destruction, as well as for civilian purposes. but they are shipping goods. Also, they do not have any information or knowledge about the companies to whom they are shipping those goods. But those companies, let's suppose if they are sanctioned by the USA, so this logistic company is vulnerable that it may also become a subject of sanction from the US. If they are shipping goods to a prohibited company, and the goods as well, they are prohibited goods. So the summary of this is that a global logistic provider proceeds transactions linked to jurisdictions under trade restrictions. Weak internal controls allowed proliferation related goods to be shipped under misdeclared invoices. So in the invoices, the company that wanted the shipping company to ship the goods for them, they misrepresented them, misdeclared them. They were transferring some goods which were related to proliferation financing, but because of lack of proper systems and controls, the logistic company inadvertently or unknowingly they shipped goods that were prohibited. So therefore, we need to have proper systems even in the creative city free zone, whether it is creative city free zone or company formation service providers. They need to understand that what would be the activity of the customer who is establishing company through this company service providers, as well as in the creative city free zone. So that needs to be understood. We need to check if the goods that they will be dealing, are they come under the category of dual use items? If yes, then have they required or have they received the permissions, the certificates from the UAE government, from the Executive Office of Control and Non-Proliferation or not? So all these matters are extremely important. We must know with whom we are dealing, what they are dealing in, with whom these people are dealing with. All these information we must collect, and then only we should offer our services. So proper risk management system needs to be put in place to manage the risk that we are exposed or vulnerable to. Most of the time, what happens is that people and companies, they do not take these matters serious. But believe me, throughout my 16 years of experience, and in fact, Ms. Saida would also be having the same experience, that people, they, without knowing, they get involved in business. They just ignore the fact that they are vulnerable to the risk of sanctions or other financial crimes. They get involved in business, and later on they get sanctioned by the different regulators. And I have seen this happening with so many companies in the UAE and across the world. Now we will talk about FATF, Financial Action Task Force. So Financial Action Task Force, as I said earlier, it is an international or intergovernmental organization. It was founded in 1989 by the Group 7 countries. Group 7 countries, the biggest economies in the world, they established this organization. Initially, the organization was established to fight the crime of drug trafficking in the banking sector. So drug trafficker, they would produce drugs, they would send it to USA and then Europe and other countries. They will sell the drugs would generate money, and then they would launder those monies, or to transfer those monies, they would use the banking system. So in order to stop this, FATF was founded by the Group 7 countries like the USA, France, Germany, Italy, UK, etc. These companies, they founded this organization. But with the passage of time, apart from bank, they included other sectors as well. Like they included other financial sectors such as exchange companies, insurance companies, finance companies, and in the DNBPs, the designated non-financial businesses and professions, they included the real estate sectors, company formation sectors. They included the precious metal and stone. They included the auditors, the accountants. They included the casinos also, to comply with the AML laws and regulations. So it has issued 40 different standards. The KYC processes, the sanction screening, risk assessment, all these processes, basically, they are the standards that the FATF has issued. And these standards, they get revised from time to time. And the standards are meant to combat or to fight money laundering, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing. Apart from issuing standards, FATF objective include conducting audits, which we call mutual evaluation, like they did one on the UAE, which started in 2016 and was completed in 2020. Then in 2022, they issued the mutual evaluation report of the UAE. So because of some deficiencies, UAE was included on the FATF grey list. Some restrictions were implemented on the UAE. But since, because of the vision of the UAE government, the UAE leadership, we came out of the FATF grey list. Now in 2016, the FATF will come again to do audit on the UAE AML laws and regulations and the implementation of those laws and regulations. Apart from this, it also identify blacklisted countries, which are completely non-cooperative countries. Like, for example, currently they have 3 countries on their blacklist that includes Myanmar, North Korea is there, and Iran is there. So this is what the FATF is and the objectives of the FATF. You can see I have shared the FATF blacklisted countries, and then the gray listed countries. These are the gray listed countries of the FATF. So these are completely non-compliant. That's why they were put onto the blacklist. And then these gray listed countries, they have strategic deficiencies in the AML compliance. What does it mean? It means that either they do not have adequate laws and regulation which are similar to the FATF standards or matching the FATF standards or fulfill the objective of the FATF standards. If they have laws and regulation, they are not implementing it. If they are implementing and they are identifying suspicious activities and illicit actors, they are not punishing them, or they are not cooperating with the international community in the fight against money laundering, terrorism financing. Because of all these reasons, these countries have been put onto the FATF grey list. Now, once a country is put onto the FATF grey list, it is not good for the reputation of that country. It must come out of the FATF grey list. Otherwise, other countries, they will not do business with this country that has been included on the FATF grey list. Or if at all they are doing business with this country, it will be difficult for these countries, businesses in these countries, to do business with the other country. Like, for example, the first one is Algeria. So now the Algerian banks, they will find it difficult to transfer money for the individuals who want to transfer money out of Algeria or into Algeria. Similarly, the businesses who want to transfer money to other countries so that they can order goods, products, or services from other countries, it will be difficult for them to transfer money because the other banks from the other countries, they say you are on the FATF grey list and you are high risk, so you may use our bank for the purpose of money laundering. That's why we are not doing business with them. But if they are doing business with them, the cost of business will be higher for these companies. That is why every country try to come out of the grey list by implementing the FATF 40 recommendations. FATF connection with the UAE. So UAE is a member of the MENA FATF. MENA FATF is basically an FATF style regional body. UAE is not a direct member of the FATF, but there is a regional body which is serving the same purpose, similar to what the FATF serves. It has MENA FATF says that we will implement the FATF 40 recommendation. We will do inspection on the countries in the MENA region, and we will issue the mutual evaluation report. We will find out if a country is not complying with the FATF 40 recommendation. Then we will ask the FATF to put them onto the grey list or onto the black list. So MENA FATF follows FATF standards and work closely with the FATF. The UAE has committed to implementing the FATF 40 recommendations. In 2020, I said the first mutual evaluation report of UAE was concluded by the FATF. It was published. It is available online. In definition, it identified strengths and deficiencies in the UAE AML regulations. So because of the deficiencies, UAE was added to the grey list in 2022. Then, in response to being put onto the grey list, as I said, the UAE formed a higher committee overseeing national AML CFT strategy, chaired by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, strengthened the enforcement, supervision, and risk-based assessment, enhanced cooperation with the CBUAE, Ministry of Economy, Executive Office of Control and Non-Proliferation, and other regulators like the ADGM, DIFC. And finally, UAE was removed from the grey list in February 2024. After implementing key reforms, FATF announced the removal of the UAE from the grey list within 2 years. So UAE demonstrated significant progress in prosecution and seizure of criminal assets. After 2022, when the UAE was put onto the grey list, we saw that the UAE law enforcement agencies, the UAE regulators, they put huge amount of penalties on people who were either involved in criminal activities, in money laundering, terrorism financing, proliferation financing. Just a month ago, we saw that one business tycoon, he was arrested for potential involvement in or for involvement in money laundering and other organized criminal activities. So, yeah. Any question, guys? Is either any question? So we talked about money laundering, terrorism financing, proliferation financing. We talked about the FATF, Financial Action Task Force. Now we will talk about the DNFBPs. In fact, we already discussed it, but let's discuss it in detail. As I said that initially, when the FATF was founded, the regulations related to AML CFT were implemented only on the banks. But with the passage of time, other sectors were also included to ensure that these sectors, which are highly vulnerable to financial crimes, are not misused or abused for the money laundering and other financial crimes. Among the other sectors, apart from the financial institutions, the DNEPP or designated non-financial financial businesses and professions included real estate agents, dealers in precious metals and stones, lawyers, notaries, and other legal professionals. Similarly, company service providers and auditors and accountants were included to ensure that whenever they deal with their clients, they have a check and balance and oversight on their clients, that the clients are not involved in financial crimes. And at the same time, the government and the regulators, they wanted to have a check and balance on these sectors, that these sectors themselves, they do not facilitate the crime of money laundering and terrorism financing. Therefore, in the UAE, when the federal law number 20 of 2018 was issued, and then the cabinet decision number 10 of 2019, and so on, in 2020, the UAE Ministry of Economy was made the regulator. It was already a regulator for the businesses in the UAE, but it was also given the task to do the inspection and require these DNABP sector to comply with the AML laws and regulations of the UAE. So at that time, the Central Bank of the UAE, it issued and published different types of guidelines for the DNABP sector. Similarly, the Ministry of Economy also published different types of guidelines and regulations for the DNABP sector. Therefore, DNABP must comply with the AML regulations like customer due diligence, reporting of suspicious transactions, and implementing internal controls. So what are the different controls that the DNABPs are required to implement? Basically, they need to have a structured design of its AML compliance function, which include, like there are 4 different pillars of the AML compliance program. The first one is development and establishment of policies and procedures. So these sectors need to have policies and procedures, detailed policies and procedures. Sometime when I go and I check, when I'm doing audit on the DNABP sectors, they have policy, but the policy is for exchange company. They are offering company service company formation services, or they are real estate agents. But when I check their AML policy, the policy is for exchange companies, which is completely wrong. Like, you need to have policy which is related to your business model and your business portfolio, which should include details that who are your customer, what type of product and services you are offering to your client, what are the jurisdictions you are dealing in, means what are the countries you are dealing with, what is the delivery channel, how do you deliver the services to your customer, and how the customer delivers the funds to you for the provision of those services. So based on all these factors, you should design a proper detailed SOP, standard operating procedures, or you can say detailed policies, processes, and procedures that explain every aspect of the operations that you perform in your company, from the KYC, that how do you perform the KYC, what are the different types of KYC, to the reporting to the management and record keeping requirement. So in between the KYC and reporting, you will have different other operations, like how do we perform the sanction screening, how do we do the business risk assessment, how do we do the customer risk assessment, how do we do the enterprise-wide risk assessment, and that help us to identify that what is the level of risk of the organization. Like, for example, let's say we are a company service provider. So what is the risk of the organization itself? At the same time, we have to check what type of risk the customers are bringing to us or making us vulnerable to financial crimes such as money laundering, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing. So there should be proper policies, procedures, and step by step, we should do these processes. Then only we will be able to ensure that we have adequate, effective controls and we are secured from financial crimes. We are not used for the financial crimes. So then you need to have a qualified, experienced compliance officer who is having experience and who is qualified in anti-financial crimes. He know how to develop the policy. He know how to give the training. He know how to conduct the sanction screening, risk assessment, and other monitoring activities. Similarly, he will be from senior management and he will be corresponding with the regulators and other different stakeholders such as the senior management, the directors, the ownership of the company, with the law enforcement agencies when required. Then the third pillar is the provision of AML CFT training to all the departments. So you will be having different departments. If you are like, for example, if you are at NABP, you are a real estate. So you will have to provide training to the sales team. You will have to provide training to the internal audit. You have to provide training to the senior management, and all these trainings should be different. There shouldn't be any single training, but because they are performing different types of operation, so the risk will be different the risk will be different in each areas of your organization or company. Similarly, in broader context, I mean, the risk of real estate will be different from the risk of precious metal and stone. Similarly, the lawyers, notaries, and other legal professionals, their risk will be different from the company service providers or from the auditors and accountants. Accordingly, you have to design your compliance function. And then the fourth pillar of the AML compliance function is conducting independent testing on the audit, on the compliance function. So you need to have an independent third party which is knowledgeable, experienced. You need to ask them, please check our policies, procedures, if they are adequate and they are in conformity with the regulatory requirements or not. It is not that I am the compliance officer and at the same time I am doing audit on my compliance function. This is not the right way. So these are the four different pillars. I repeat, the first one is policies, procedure, second one is appointment of experienced compliance manager at the senior level. Third one is provision of training, and fourth one is conducting independent assessment of the compliance function. Then, as I said, we have got different laws and regulations. The first one, the groundbreaking initiative of the UAE government, was issuing Federal Decree Law number 20 of 2018, Prior to this law, we already had some laws, but those laws were not aligned with the FATF recommendations. Now, these laws are completely in line with the FATF recommendation. And this particular law, Federal Decree Law, it established the legal foundation for the AML compliance regime of the UAE. It applies to both financial institutions and DNABPs and to government entities also. Like, for example, we have different regulators. We have the Ministry of Economy for the DNABP sectors. We have the Financial Intelligence Unit, or FIU, which is having the GoML portal, and upon which we are reporting cash transactions. We are reporting suspicious transactions. We are also reporting if there is any sanction match, etc. Then we have customs and immigration. We have police. We have CID. All other. We have the Central Bank of the UAE, ADGM, DIFC is there, and all these different government entities, they are operating in close collaboration with each other. So further, this law talks about asset freezing and confiscation, and then international cooperation. So if somebody from another country, let's suppose another FIU from another country, they need some information, they can reach out to the UAE FIU, and the UAE FIU will share with them information. And then similarly, law enforcement agencies, they can also extend their cooperation. Then, in order to implement this decree law, the UAE government issued Cabinet Decision number 10 of 2019, which provides detailed rules for implementing the the federal decree law. It defines the obligations of the DNABP, including customer due diligence, suspicious transaction reporting, record keeping, risk-based approach. So all the processes that we follow in our company, basically it inmates, or you can say it comes from the Cabinet Decision number 10 of 2019. It has set out the rules of supervisory authorities, for example, the Ministry of Economy, CBUAE, also that what would be their, what is their authority and what is their scope of work. Then we have Cabinet Decision number 74 of 2020 that requires the implementation of the relevant UN resolutions which are related to sanctions. So, for example, in the UN, we have countries in the Security Council, which include USA, UK, China is there, then France is there, Russia is there. What these countries do is that they decide that we have to implement sanctions on terrorists. So they will pass a resolution. Then, as a member of the United Nations, all other countries, they are required to implement those sanctions in their countries and on the individuals who are involved in the crime based on which they were sanctioned by the UN Security Council. So in order to implement those Security Council resolutions, we have Cabinet Decision number 74 of 2020. And how do we implement? Is that we are doing sanction screening of people who comes in business and do business with us. So if we identify that their names are on the sanctions list of the UAE or the United Nations, we are required to freeze their asset, block their transaction, and report them on the GoML portal. So there are two lists are there, which include UN designated individuals and entity list and UAE local terrorist list. So when we are using a sanction screening software, we need to ensure that the software we are using is having both of these lists. And also we have to check, like for example, let's say there is a company service provider which is having a branch in another country also, then they have to check that they implement other international sanctions also, such as the OFAC sanctions are there, EU sanction, UK sanctions are there. Now, this particular law is applicable to the financial institutions, the DNABP sectors, and virtual asset service provider like the cryptocurrency companies. Next one, we have Cabinet Decision number 109 of 2023. This was issued to establish a framework for the identification of the actual UBO. So now when we are opening a company, we need to understand and we need to identify that who is the actual owner of the company. We need to collect this information, and then we are required to provide these information to the government so that they keep these information in the register. This particular decision or law is issued to enhance the transparency of the corporate structures. We have different types of corporate structure that includes limited liability company, sole proprietorships are there. We have holding companies, we have trust, we have foundations. So in order to maintain transparency that who are the owners or the shareholders of the company, under this law, we need to collect these information and supply it to the government so that they can keep it in the register, and whenever required, they access those information and do the take the necessary action. Any question, guys? Is either any question?
Yes, there is from Amwaj Abdullah.
Okay.
Hi,
Mr.
I
Amwaj,
just want
hi.
to ask about the blacklist.
Yeah.
So there are 3 countries in the blacklist. So I just want to know, it's prohibited also to open the license for them, right?
Could you please come again? Your voice is breaking actually.
I mean, there are the 3 countries in the blacklist.
Yes.
We can open a license for them, or it's also prohibited.
Okay. See, now because these are high risk countries, and the people coming from them, they are high risk nationalities. Every company they are having their own policy, and we call it risk appetite. So like, for example, if I am dealing with these companies, I need to check, do we have an appetite? I mean, do we have the systems where we can accept this risk, and how this risk makes us vulnerable to financial crime, what the UAE law says about it. So like, for example, let's suppose we have a North Korean national and he is here, he wants to establish a company. So there are higher chances that this person will make us vulnerable to the crime of proliferation financing, because North Korea is sanctioned because of their nuclear program. So there are higher chances that this guy will open a company, and then he will process funds through this company to acquire the ingredients, or you can say the goods and products and services that can be used for the development of weapons of mass destruction. Now, this is a very high risk activity. The UAE government does not categorically stop us for establishing business relationship with them, but this should be our decision. Can we take up this risk? So if you ask me, I would say that let me check the risk and reward ratio. Risk and reward ratio means that how much would be the reward for my company if I am opening company for the customer coming from North Korea, and how much is the risk. So the risk is quite high. He is making us vulnerable to the crime of proliferation financing. And the reward is, even if he is giving me a fees of 100,000 dirham, it is still less, because if I'm getting a penalty for his involvement in the crime of proliferation of proliferation financing, in that case, I will take huge amount of penalty if I do not do, or if I fail to conduct proper or thorough due diligence on this guy. So the answer, like, I would ask the management, should we take up this customer? And in my opinion, they would say, no, we should not take up the customer from this country. You understood my answer, Ms. Amwaj?
Yes, thank you very much.
Welcome. Any other question related to the same topic? It was a very good question from Ms. Amwaj. I really appreciate her. No questions? Okay, so let's move forward. We talked and discussed these laws in details. Now we are going to talk about, but before we proceed, I think we should talk about the Ministry of Economy as well. Now, the Ministry of Economy is the regulator for the DNABP sectors. We have different regulators for financial institutions on the mainland. We have Central Bank of the UAE. In ADGM, we have the FSRA in, we have the FSRA and ADGM itself. They are the regulators for the companies in their jurisdiction. And then we have the DIFC and DFSA, Dubai Financial Service Regulatory Authority, and DIFC, Dubai International Financial Center, who are the regulators for the companies in their jurisdictions in Dubai. So, since we are DNABPs and mostly we are on the mainland, even Creative City Free Zone, for the DNABPs, the regulator is the Ministry of Economy. Now, the Ministry of Economy has issued different types of guidelines, and it requires the DNABP sectors, which includes real estate, precious metal and stone, company service provider, auditors, accountants, lawyers, and then casinos. They require these companies to have proper AML compliance function. They need to have a compliance officer. They need to have policies, procedure. There should be sanction screening, risk assessment, and blah, blah, blah. So for all this, we have the Ministry of Economy. The next objective of the Ministry of Economy is to ensure that all these companies are implementing these regulations effectively. For this, in order to ensure that they are implementing effectively, they will come and they will do audit on your company, and they will check if you have policies, procedure, and other controls or not. If you do not have, then you will be vulnerable to the crime of money laundering, and you will be vulnerable to government penalties also from the Ministry of Economy. So that we need to bear in mind. We have lots of clients who approach us, and they are given penalties for non-compliances by the Ministry of Economy. And then they want us to help them to waive off those penalties. So for this reason, we need to ensure that instead of getting penalties, we need to have proper AML compliance. We are registered on the GoAML portal, and we are doing the necessary activities required as per the Ministry of Economy guidelines for the DNABP sector. So the other controls which we are going to talk about, among them, the first one is KYC and customer due diligence in company formation. So the objective of this process is to ensure that client forming companies through us have been legitimately identified. We know that who are these clients. Like, for example, what is the name of the customer? What is the name of the UBO? What is the nationality? What is the date of birth? We need to check them on the sanction screening list that they do not have any sanctions against them. We also need to perform open source intelligence on them and ensure that they do not have any adverse media or negative news or information against them. Like, for example, a person who did some fraudulent activity, they did embezzlement from a company. He may not be on the sanctions list, but when you do open source intelligence, you find out that this guy was involved in this illicit activity. So this should be done on risk-based approach. Now, what do we mean by risk-based approach? Many people, they are using these terms such as risk-based approach. So we use certain formulas, certain techniques to identify the level of risk based on these factors like nationality, the customer activity, then the delivery channel, and the product and services that we are offering to them. So, like, for example, as Ms. Amwad, she asked about the high-risk countries. So customers coming from those countries will be placed as high risk because they are on FATF blacklist. And also, most of the people from those countries, most of the organizations from those countries, they are under sanctions by the United Nations, by the UAE, by the USA, and other countries. For this reason, customers from these countries, they will be high risk. But at the same time, there might be other countries also who are posing high risk of financial crimes. Like, for example, countries where there is a conflict, where there is war happening. Similarly, countries where there is a higher corruption happening, there is political imbalances there, political instabilities are there. Similarly, customers when they involved in certain activities, they are high risk customers. Like for example, if we have customers who are dealing in precious metals and stone, they are high risk customers. Customers who are in real estate sector, they are high risk customers, right? So all these things we need to assess. We need to give a risk rating to the customer, and based on the risk rating received, we should apply the due diligence. So for some customer, we will be asking less information, but for other, we will be asking huge amount of information and documentation to ensure that they are not involved in criminal activities, and they are the exposure that they bring to us to financial crime is properly managed and mitigated. This will protect the Creative City and other companies who are in different business activities, involved in business activities under the DNAPP, from being misused from money laundering, terrorist financing, and other financial crime. So KYC basically refers to the process of identifying and verifying the identity of a customer before or during the start of a business relationship. It is a fundamental compliance requirement to ensure the customer who they claim to be and that their activities are lawful. So like, for example, if I say my name is Suhail Akbar, how would you know? You need to check my Emirates ID. You need to check my passport copy. You need to check the information available on these documents is genuine. The document itself is genuine. It is not a forged document. How would you know? When you look at my Emirates ID, you are connected with the UAE government ICA, and through ICA, you verify that yes, the details I have provided to you are either genuine or false. So if it is false, you have to report me. If it is genuine, then you will proceed with the transaction and collect other information. That why I want to open a company, what is the purpose of the establishment of the company, what is my source of fund, what is my business activity, etc. All these procedures we call KYC. Within the KYC, we have different levels of due diligences. So we have the basic due diligence process, which we call customer identification. Then we have customer due diligence, which is the standardized due diligence format. And then we have the enhanced due diligence, where we require additional documents from the customer to provide. We will discuss this in detail. But I would like to check if there is any question, guys. Is either any question?
It seems no, there is no question. Any question, anyone? Nothing, it seems.
All right. So CDD is a core component of the KYC process. It involves assessing the customer's risk profile. As I said, we assign a risk to the customer, collecting information and documentation proportionate to the risk level that the customer is representing to your organization. And when do we apply the customer due diligence? It is applied at the beginning of establishing the business relationship, like the company formation. If there is any suspicion of money laundering or terrorism financing or proliferation financing, when we suspect that the customer is involved in money laundering, we should apply the due diligence to ensure that our doubt is on reasonable grounds. When the customer information is incomplete or inconsistent, when we collect the information, but the sales team, when they provide the information, and the compliance team, they come to know that we still require some additional information. In that case, we are required to complete the due diligence process. And then periodically, when the company license expires and they are renewing it, so we should periodically conduct the due diligence on them to ensure that they are not involved in any illegal activity. Then 5 steps of the KYC and due diligence process: customer identification, collect identity documents, for example, passport, Emirates ID, obtain personal or company details, then verifying the identity, validate the document through reliable and official sources, understanding the process of relationship, determine the reason for company formation or business activity, identify the UBO, and verify the UBO, especially for legal entities. Then risk management, classify the customer risk level, conduct screening against sanction screening. We also need to check if the customer is a politically exposed person. We will discuss what do we mean by politically exposed person. And for the adverse media. Then review and update records. This is ongoing monitoring, monitor activity and report suspicious activities, where necessary. So customer due diligence by sales teams during the company formation. For individual client, these are the information that we are required, like full legal name as per the passport, emirates ID, nationality, date and place of birth, occupation, and source of income. Then residential address with proof, contact details, purpose of company formation, country of tax residence. Then other documents like valid passport copy, emirates ID, proof of address, bank reference letter or recent bank statement, or audited financials to understand where the money is coming from, where the funds are going to, what type of business activity they are doing in. And then completed and signed KYC form that Ms. Aida will be sharing with you. In fact, she may have already shared with you. And then source of fund declaration that their source of fund is legitimate, and also that where it originates from. So this is normal due diligence, but in enhanced due diligence, we are required additional information. Like, for example, let's say you have got a politically exposed person with you. So who is a politically exposed person? We will talk about it in detail. But in short, these are individuals who are holding higher positions in a government or in international organizations, and they are highly vulnerable. They have the authority. There are higher chances that they may involve in financial crimes such as bribery, corruption, embezzlement, etc. So apart from collecting the source of fund declaration from them, we are required to collect the source of wealth declaration. Now, there is a difference between source of fund and source of wealth. If you ask me, what is your source of fund? So I would say my source of fund is my salary. And then you ask me, okay, can you give me a documented proof? And I give you a documented proof, like I ask my employer to give me the source of, like to give me a salary certificate. So from that, you can justify that, yes, this is my salary certificate and this much I am taking from this company, and the activity that I perform with the help of those funds, it is possible that I can handle such activity, business activity. Now, if you ask me, what is your source of wealth? So I would say my source of wealth is my salary plus my business income. Now, in order to demonstrate the legitimacy of my source of wealth, you should ask me, could you please give us your salary certificate plus audited financials of your company that indicates that how much is the income in that company, what is the revenue, and what are the goods you are dealing with, what are the companies you have worked with, how much are the liabilities, how much taxes you have paid in corporate taxes or in VAT taxes. So if you identify anything, then you should report it to the financial intelligence unit as suspicious activity. If not, then you should allow me to establish a company or business relationship with Creative City Free Zone. Any question related to this, Ms. Aida? Any of your team member who is having question about it? No question, guys?
Team of
Okay, so
compliance, do you have any question? It seems no.
Excellent. So that means that they are knowledgeable people. Okay, for legal person, there are basically two types of persons are there. One is natural person. Natural person are human beings, and then legal persons. Legal persons are companies. So let's suppose if you are opening a company, but the company should be owned by, the company is going to be owned by another company. So these are the information that we are required to collect: full legal name of the company, jurisdiction or country of the incorporation of that company, the registration detail, business activity, and group structure. If there are any group of companies, then you need to collect the organization structure. You need to understand who owns how much amount of shares in each of the company and who is the actual UBO, their name and details of the directors. So like, for example, you have to collect the You have to collect the directors and the UBO's address details. You may be required to collect, the attested passport copies. Then you may be required to collect the utility bills in order to establish their proof of address. Then purpose of the new company, that why do they want to open the company? For example, is it a trading company or a consultancy? What would be the activity? Documents to collect include certificate of incorporation of the parent company, memorandum of an article of association to understand that how many shareholders are there, what is the relationship between the shareholders, board resolution authorizing the signatory. There might be someone who is being authorized by the board that he can execute different types of activities. You need to understand that what type of activities are permitted for this guy. Is he permitted to establish a company or not? Then certificate of incumbency or good standing, register of shareholders and directors, group structure chart, passport copies of directors in UBO, and KYC forms for UBO and authorized representatives. So these are the information that we are required to collect. Then ultimate beneficial ownership identification, we discussed this in detail. Further, we need to collect these information because we have to submit it to the government so that they can have it in their record. We need to know the full name of the UPO, their nationality, place of birth, identity details and copies, residential addresses, percentage of ownership, control, and date of becoming the UBO. Then documents required include signed UBO declaration form, passport copies, and ownership proof if not already submitted. These details we need to collect. Okay, now we are going to talk about politically exposed persons. So who are the politically exposed persons? We will discuss this, and after this, we will take a lunch break. Miss Ida?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
After PEP.
Yeah, after this particular topic.
Okay.
So politically exposed persons are individuals who are or have been entrusted with prominent public functions in the state or any other foreign country. So in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, if somebody is entrusted with prominent public function, like in the government, he is for example, let's say he's the chairman of Emirates Airline, or he is a minister in the government. So that would be we are required to we would be considering them as PEP. Similarly, someone who is having a higher position in the military, in the judiciary, in the police, so that person would also be considered as a politically exposed person. There are three different types of politically exposed persons, like the definition I gave you. If they are here in the UAE, we will consider them domestic politically exposed person. If they are from another country, then they will be considered as foreign politically exposed person. But if they are heading international organizations like the General Secretary of the United Nations, for example, then the FIFA president, the chairman, or the president of the FATF, they will be considered as international politically exposed person. And their family members will also come under the category of PEPs. So the close family members and close associates, like for example, kids, wives, parents, brothers, and similarly close associates like someone who is closely known to a PEP as their friends or ally. Then PEP status itself does not incriminate individuals, which means that being a PEP is not necessary that you are a criminal or the PEP is a criminal, but it is a high risk situation where we are required to apply enhanced due diligence on and ensure that the person we are dealing with is not involved in any legal activities. So that's it. Let's take a break, and then we should resume the session at 12:30. Miss Aida?
Can you please, sorry, can you please mention in PEPs like what kind of documents and what kind of requirements will be required?
Yeah.
Or we will
So as
cover
I
that after this the lunch
no
break.
let's continue. It's a good question. Very good. So let's say we have a politically exposed person. Apart from collecting details about the source of fund, we are required to collect the details about the source of wealth of the politically exposed person. So when we say source of wealth, so as I said earlier, if he is having some business income, he should provide audited financials. Maybe he is having some property inherited from his parents. So they should provide you those details also, that we inherited this much amount of money from our parents, or if they have received any gifts from some other family members, that should be disclosed to you. Once they provide you these details, you should do the background checks. Tomorrow we will be discussing about the open source intelligence, and you will be given training by one of my staff member. So through that, if you identify any adverse news about this person, you should report them to the senior management and report them to the financial intelligence unit. If there are no negative information against them, so you should take a declaration from them. A PEP declaration form should be there with you, which demonstrates or declares that the person dealing with you is not involved in any financial crime. He is a PEP. The form should disclose that what is his position, uh, and then you should sign it. They should sign it. You as a compliance officer should sign it, and you are required to take senior management approval. So senior management could be anyone from in your organization. You take their approval, and then you are good to go and establish business relationship with them. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Welcome. Still, if you have any question, you can ask about it now or even after the session.
After the
I think
break, even sure.
Mr. Abubakar is having some question, Ms. Aida.
Yes.
You could check.
Yes, Mr. Abubakar, you can ask.
Which open source intelligence we can use to find the background of a person, like which is the available for us, like for the public?
Well, it's a specialized course that we perform. There are no specific. There are tools, but those tools I would say they are very expensive. I don't remember their name also, but we are doing it manually, and there is a specialized course that we provide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So catch you after half an hour. I mean 12:30.
12:30,
right, Miss Aida?
inshallah.
Yes.
Sure, 12:30. Aisha, I guess
Yeah.
there is someone, Aisha, yeah. You have a question.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, ma'am. Yeah, just I want to know the duration of this course that you mentioned. What will be the duration? Or you will mention in the next session we will have after the break?
The duration, I think that is around 2 to 3 hours, in which you will be practically shown that how we do the background checks on the companies, how do we do the background checks of the websites, how do we do the background checks of the individuals we are going to establish business relationship with.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. May I know which company you are from, Miss Aisha?
Actually, I'm working in Kalba Hospital.
Okay.
But I own a company with the Creative City
Oh,
named
okay, great.
Infinity Arts. So that's it.
All right. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
So catch you then. Okay. At 12:30.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Sure,
Take care.
12:30. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aida. Okay, just a minute. All right, so before going on the break, we were talking about the politically exposed persons, and we discussed that who are the politically exposed person, what are the different types of politically exposed persons. We talked about the domestic politically exposed persons, um, foreign politically exposed persons, and then the international politically exposed persons. We also discussed the close associates and the family members, that they will also be considered as the PEPs. Similarly, we discussed and talked about the documents that we should collect. So from a politically exposed person, if the person already is having some kind of business, we are required to take their audited financials to check that the funds that they are having in their other businesses are coming or originating from legitimate sources, and aligns with what information the customer has given about their source of fund and source of wealth. Plus, we need to collect from the person the PEP declaration form, and in the PEP declaration, they will have to declare that what are the sources of their wealth, like maybe they have not calculated the source of wealth for the property which they inherited from their parents, the gifts that they may have received from someone. So they have to declare that the value of those gifts, inherited properties, to the creative city free zone. Then we will conduct a background check. Similarly, when and at the same time, when we collect these informations on the KYC form before establishing relationship with the PEPs, we have to take senior management approval. Once we finish the background checks, we will compile a report, and the report should state that this person is a politically exposed person. He's having this particular position in particular department in a government department, or is a minister in foreign or local or international. And then what analysis did you perform on his audited financials? What were the outcomes? If you had any doubts, you will narrate that in that report. And finally, you will either suggest to the senior management to approve or decline the relationship based on the fact that you have narrated in the report. Ms. Aida, any question related to this?
No, thank you, Sahil. It's clear.
Okay, thank you. On our customer. We will tomorrow for the compliance team, we have another training. And in that training, we will discuss the different aspects of the risk management, or to be more specific, AML CFT risk management process that we perform. So basically, it consists of 3 different processes. The first one is business risk assessment. We perform a business risk assessment like in the creative city. What are the type of customers we are dealing with? What are the jurisdiction? What are the services we offer? What are the products? Like what are the different types of companies that we form for them? What are the delivery channels? Do we perform eKYC on the customer, or they visit some offices and then we perform the KYC, or how it happens? Then we will talk about our controls. What are the different types of controls in the creative city free zone? And finally, we will arrive at the residual risk. So we have residual risk on one side, and on the other side, we have our risk appetite. Risk appetite is basically the willingness of creative city free zone of doing business with the different types of customers. So among them, like let's say there is a customer, as we discussed earlier, that there is a customer from a blacklisted country, let's say Iran. He comes to you and he wants to establish business relationships. So your risk appetite says that, okay, we are not onboarding such customer, or we onboard such customers, but then we define the relationship that we will be having with this customer on more micro level. And we say that, okay, he will be having a company here, but what type of company we will allow him to establish in Creative City Free Zone, and what type of companies will not be allowed to him. At the same time, we will allow only those citizens of Iran who are here in the UAE for the past 10 years and they do not have any negative news or information against them. Excuse me. So this is what we call risk appetite. Then when we arrive at the residual risk, and especially we perform the EVRA in enterprise-wide risk assessment. So at the enterprise-wide risk assessment, we take data for the past 6 months or 1 year, and we check that, okay, we decided and agreed in our risk appetite that we will onboard Iranian customers only those who are having 10 years of residency in the UAE. So then when we are checking the data, we would also check that, okay, we had agreed this. So do we have any customer from Iran who is only 5 years, who has spent only 5 years? If we yes, then we have to decide that whether we should give him exemption, continue business relationship with him, or we should exclude him and we should close his company. So that would be the de-risking part of the enterprise-wide risk assessment. Overall, we have to monitor our residual risk. So as I said, the first one is business risk assessment. We will perform the business risk assessment. Second one is customer risk assessment. So since we have the agents and the sales team here in this webinar, because they are giving you information, the CDD or the due diligence information based on which the compliance department conducts the customer risk assessment. That's why we will discuss first the customer risk assessment and then other topics we will explain. So customer risk assessment is the process of evaluating the potential money laundering, terrorism financing, or proliferation financing risk that a customer posed to Creative City Free Zone. So now let's say Mr. XYZ has come to open a company in Creative City Free Zone. So we have to check his information. We do the sanction screening. We say, okay, there are no sanctions or adverse media against him. We check his nationality. Let's suppose his nationality is France. So when we look at France, France is not in the FATF gray list or black list. Also, France is a member of the FATF, direct member of the FATF. So that means that in France, the risk of money laundering and other financial crimes is less. Similarly, the activity that he will be having, it is, let's suppose the activities he's having is, it is a sole proprietorship, and then he is involved in business related to garments. So he imports kids garments from China, for example, and then he distributes here in the UAE or he sells it to another country. So that again we consider as a low risk activity. Overall, when we have an aggregate risk level of this customer, he is falling into the low risk category of the through our customer risk assessment. Now let's suppose we have another customer who is coming from again from an FATF member country, but he is importing machinery. Now that machinery is he is importing machinery and he is sending it to, let's suppose he is sending that machinery to Italy. So we need to check, since Italy is a member of the FATF, the customer nationality is also a low risk, but the customer activity, the business activity or the commercial activity is importing machinery that can be used both for development and manufacturing of weapons of mass destruction, as well as for civilian purposes. Let's suppose we say he is he is importing the machinery that is going to be used in the hospitals. So that machinery, we need to check, since it is dual use machinery. And based on this commercial activity, the customer is falling into high risk activity. And overall risk also, we label the customer as high risk customer. So now, since the customer is a high risk customer, and because of the fact that he is importing machinery that can be used for dual use activities, we need to ask the customer additional information. We need to ask him, have you received any permission or certificate from the UAE government, also from the country from where you are importing it to the UAE, and then to the country, like let's suppose he says, I'm sending it to Italy. Have you received any permission from them? So that documents we need to collect from the customer. This is what we call customer risk assessment. Any question on this, Miss Aida?
No.
Okay.
From the audience, anyone is having questions? It seems no.
Yeah. So why I'm discussing it with the agents and sales team is that this is what we call adequate or risk-based due diligence, is that you are required to collect the accurate information. For example, if this person is importing machinery and you do not report that this customer is the commercial activity will be importing machinery, for example, so this poses a high risk to the creative city free zone. It exposes creative city free zone and overall the UAE to the crime of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. So when you are like, let's say he says that my license is general trading, you agree with him, but you ask him that what goods you will be dealing with. There, that is the point where you should collect these information, and it should be accurately collected and then reported to the compliance department of Creative City Free Zone. The next one is sanction screening. So the compliance department in Creative City Free Zone, they perform the sanction screening. For this, we need exact information about the company name, if the company is going to open a company in Creative City Free Zone, or if it is an individual. So we need to have the details about the individual, the other shareholder, exact and correct information should be collected. So we screen and we check if there are any sanctions on the customer or against the customer or not. Now, so what do we mean by sanctions actually? Just a minute. Yeah, what do we mean by sanctions? Sanctions are restrictions that are imposed on individuals, on organizations, and on companies because of certain activities that these people are involved in. They are involved in terrorism. Others are involved in terrorism financing. Some people are involved in higher cases of money laundering. So they are sanctioned here. Similarly, there might be other activities like a company shipping goods to some illicit actors, knowingly or not, but they are being put onto the sanctions. So what do we mean by sanctions? They are restricted from doing business. Sometimes they are restricted from getting access to the amount, to the money that they have put in their banks, in their bank accounts. Sometimes they are restricted from getting access to the company they own. Sometimes they are restricted from opening companies in the UAE. So again, we have to provide accurate information to the compliance team. The correspondence that we are having with the customers, during the correspondence, if we identify something suspicious conversation, maybe the person with whom we are dealing is not a sanctioned person, but he is linked to another person. Like, for example, you ask him some questions and he say, let me ask another friend about this and then I will reply or respond to you. These are suspicious instances that indicates that the customer, it is not that the customer is, yes, he is involved. No, potentially he might be involved in financial crimes or other suspicious activities, which we are required to report. We are required to record and then report it to the financial intelligence unit. So this is about risk assessment and sanction screening. Now we will discuss the red flags. What do we mean by red flags? Red flags are indicators of money laundering, which help us identify instances of suspicious activities, suspicious people, and then these indicators or red flags, they have come to us from FATF, from the government authorities, and from the past experiences. So let's suppose there is a person, he wants to establish a business relationship with Creative City Free Zone, or he has already established a company, but they are making frequent changes in the ownership of the company, or to the UBO or to director shortly after incorporation. They want to change the UBO, etc. This is a suspicious instance. Then use of nominee shareholders or directors to obscure the beneficial ownership. The person says that I want to introduce in the ownership, I want to introduce a company. And when you check the ownership of that company, you do not know about the UBOs, but there are nominee shareholders are there, nominee directors are there. There are genuine reasons as well sometimes, like for example, I want to introduce a shareholder into my business, but it is a nominee shareholder and I do not want to give him full authority. He's just nominated to be there as shareholder. Whatever agreement I might be having with that person, but I want to introduce him with limited authority over the legal structure. So that could be a genuine reason. But at the same time, possibilities are there that they may be exploiting this type of service to perform or conduct financial crimes. Client is unwilling or is evasive about providing UBO or source of fund documentation. Most of the time we have this complaint that when we ask the customer to provide the source of fund details, they get angry, they get evasive, or they are unwilling. So sometimes there are genuine reasons. Sometimes they say that this is our confidential information and we do not want to share with this with. The best thing is, the best approach is to convince them to provide you these documents, because we are not taking it for our personal interest. These are the regulatory requirements from the Ministry of Economy, and we must collect these details from the customer. If we do not do so, then the liability will be on the person who is corresponding with the customer and collecting the information. So if they fail, then there are chances of accountability. Cash-based businesses with no physical office or operational activities, like a customer is already involved in cash-based operations. Like for example, let's say there is a superstore is there. The customer says that I am running a superstore and the amount of money that I have for establishing company in the UAE or establishing business is coming from that superstore. But when you ask him, can you give us audited financials? They say we do not have any document. Similarly, company declares high risk sector, for example, gold trading, crypto, money services with minimal operational history. So you have a company, you have a business, they would want to establish another company in Creative City Free Zone, or you have a customer who is having these types of businesses, but when you ask them for audited financials, they have minimal activity in these companies. Purpose of company is vague or not supported by business plan or expected activity. I want to open a company, but when you ask me about the activity, the experience that I have related to that activity, I cannot answer your question. So like, for example, if you ask me, let's suppose there is a customer who wants to establish a general trading company and you ask him what goods you will be selling in the company. He says, I want to sell leather items, leather goods or products. So when you ask him, where are you importing the leather goods from? And he say, I am importing the leather goods from Afghanistan. But Afghanistan is a country where there are no leather goods produced. This is completely opposite. And he doesn't have any experience about what he's saying and what he's going to do. Or this is suspicious activity, and this is a red flag that requires us to report. Mismatch between customer profile and business activity. Unemployed persons forming a high capital business. An unemployed person comes in, he doesn't have any employment background. He doesn't have, like, apparently he doesn't have any justification for the amount of money he is having, but he wants to establish a high capital business. So this should be investigated for financial crimes, and if deemed, then it should be reported. Use of multiple companies in different jurisdiction with no clear linkage or commercial jurisdiction. This is another red flag. Any explanation that you may need, Ms. Aida, or your team pertaining to these red flags?
For now, everything is clear. And if they have any question, they will be definitely asking you by tomorrow.
All right. Okay. Now, terrorist financing activity. First, we discussed about money laundering, red flags. Now, terrorist financing red flags or indicators. So, company has links to high risk or sanctioned jurisdiction known for terrorism funding. Let's suppose there is a country where there is terrorism happening and the country is sanctioned, there is war happening, and the company that we are establishing in Creative City Free Zone is either the company or the owner of the company is having links to that country. So we need to be alert. We need to do proper due diligence and ensure that we do not onboard someone who is having links to terrorists. Founder, UPO directors are listed on terrorism watch list of the UAE, UN, OFAC, etc. Company claims to be a charity, humanitarian, or non-profit organization, but lacks transparency or financial backing. So charitable organizations are the ones that are mostly used by the terrorist financiers. They collect charities and then they transfer these funds for the illicit activities of terrorism. So if you have any such organization, they need to be properly investigated. We need to check if they have the ministry approval in the UAE for establishing this business or not. Otherwise, we should not establish business relationship with them. Then use of virtual offices or mail drops with no real presence or staff. Most of the time, in free zones, we have flexi disk companies. We have companies who do not have employees, and they do not have offices also. Only mail drops addresses they have. So they may also be, there are also chances that they might be potentially linked to terrorist financing activity. Businesses has connection to conflict zones or politically unstable region, adverse media or non-affiliation with extremist groups or causes. So this is what when we are doing the open source intelligence, we try to figure out if the people we are dealing with, do they have any connections to illicit actors like as I earlier said that we are doing investigation of the website, we are doing investigation of the um, social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other, and we check if they are who are in their friend list. If the friend list is not available, we check where did they post comments, on which posts they are putting their comments, what type of comments do they put, what communication do they do when they are available on the social media platform. So then proliferation financing, company involved in dual-use goods, items, both civilian and military applications such as chemicals, electronics, and drones, etc. Vague or deceptive end user or end user declaration for imported or exported good is not properly declared. It is deceptive. So sometimes what happens, like let's suppose I open a company and this company is involved in business that import goods from China, let's suppose, or from any other country. And then it sends these goods to, I am claiming that I'm sending these goods to Afghanistan. And how I'm sending it? Through shipping companies. So if I'm shipping through sea by ship the goods, then there are higher chances that the goods may trespass through Iranian territory, which is prohibited. This is what we call trespassing, and this is prohibited. It is a high risk activity. Maybe the goods they are importing, they are prohibited to be delivered to Iran directly. So they claim we are delivering it to Afghanistan. They are not prohibited for Afghanistan, but they send it to Iran and then they claim that we sent it to Afghanistan. Company is fronting for a foreign party from a country under UN or OFAC sanction. Let's suppose North Korean people are there who have already established companies, or there are North Korean customers, there are North Korean citizens who have established companies in the UAE. Or in another scenario, since we know that these are prohibited nationalities, they have front people on the front, they hire other nationalities under their name, they open companies, and then they get involved in proliferation financing activity. So again, for them, we need to conduct proper due diligence and proper background checks. Involvement in freight forwarding, transshipment, or re-exporting without clear supply chain documentation. That is what we discussed earlier. Payments or shipments routed through multiple jurisdiction or free zones to mask the final destinations. So there are payments, shipments are there, and they are sent to different countries. From those different countries, let's suppose the payments are sent to Turkey first, and from Turkey the payments are sent to Iran, and the goods are imported from there, and then they come to UAE somehow. Similarly, payments are sent to other countries. Finally, the gold scenario, like which I told you that gold was imported from one country, sold in another market, then the currency was converted. That was related to a sanctioned country. Those people were operating on behalf of the sanctioned country. They were first importing goods, selling those goods, converting the currency, sending the currency to another country, and from that country they were sending it to the sanctioned country. So those people were later on arrested. Then inconsistencies in trade license activity versus goods services transacted. Like for example, you have a company already established in Creative City Free Zone. Now the company is up for renewal. They want to renew the license. But when you ask them about audited financials, you find out that they are dealing in goods which are not mentioned in the trade license. The activity is not mentioned in the trade license. So that one should be investigated. And sudden establishment of a company for a high value trade with no prior business record or sector experience. So for this, we collect the business plan. That what is the business plan of the person? What type of goods and products they will be dealing? What would be the capital that they want to invest? Who would be the biggest supplier for the company? Similarly, who will be the biggest buyers of these products? Are they here in the UAE or they will be outside the UAE? All these informations we are required to collect in order to ensure that we are not exposing ourselves to financial crimes. Any question, Ms. Aida or team? Please raise your hands. Yes, Ms. Amwaj.
Can you go back to the 32 slide number 32? Okay, for the first point, company involved in dual use goods, such as chemical, electronics, or drone. What kind of electronics that might be considered as a red flag?
Okay. You are already subscribed to the EOCN list, right? And you are familiar with the EOCN website. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on the EOCN portal, this list is available. You can download it from there, and you should upload that list onto you should incorporate that into your risk assessment. So from there you can check the dual use goods list, that what kind of chemicals, what electronic items, drones, etc. they are prohibited.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Welcome. There is another list as well. I will check that and I will share with you the link.
Sure, thank you.
Then what is SAR? suspicious activity. So suspicious activity is a formal report submitted to the UAE Financial Intelligence Unit when there is a reasonable suspicion that a transaction, attempted transaction, or client activity is linked to money laundering, terrorism financing, or other financial crimes. So based on the red flags that we discussed on the previous slides, anyone identified related to the customer activity and the customer fails to demonstrate the legitimacy of that activity, we will consider that as a suspicious activity, and then we will escalate this to the compliance manager, to the compliance team. They will do their investigation, and if they find necessary, then they will report it to the FIU using the GoAML portal. So if a sales or registration officer or staff observes the red flags that we discussed, then they are required to report it to the compliance function. Yeah, to whom should we report? As I said, it should be reported to the compliance manager via emails. Ms. Aida, I hope you have internal suspicious activity reporting form available with you. If not, just let me know. We can. Oh, yeah. So that should be shared, if not shared, with the agents and other staff.
Sure.
Then do not alert the client that we have reported you as a suspicious customer, because this is tipping off, and tipping off is prohibited in the UAE. There is a fine of, I think, 1 million dirham penalties there for this. And also 1 year imprisonment is there for those who are alerting the client that either they were investigated or they were reported. Ensure confidentiality of the SAR process. Sales staffs are responsible for escalation, not direct submission. This is the responsibility of the compliance team to submit the report. Right? Yeah, so the penalty is not 1 million, it is 100, starts from 100 and reaches up to 500,000 dirham. Then record keeping requirement is extremely important. Whatever information we collect, whatever documents we collect, we must keep them for 5 years. This is the responsibility of the compliance team, but it is the responsibility again of the sales staff to collect the correct information, accurate information. And if you observe anything suspicious, you should report it to the compliance team. Ensure that data is easily retrievable for regulatory inspections or audits. Maintain copies of communication with the client, approval notes, and compliance checklist. Yes, Mr. Ishwar.
Yeah, could you please repeat on that fine amount? What was there? That is for the client, or that is for the person who is doing compliance?
This is for the person who is not doing compliance, but who informs the customer that they were investigated and reported. So what I'll do is that I'll share a complete detailed list of penalties, or you can download it. It is available online. Are you from Creative City, Mr. Ishwar?
No, I'm from Andy Spencer's Business Setup Services from the sales department.
In the Creative City, or it's another company? Sorry.
Yeah, it's another company. We are the channel partner of the Creative City Free Zones.
Okay, so I will download the complete list of, I will share the complete list of penalties with the compliance team of Creative City, and then they will share it with you. Don't worry.
Okay, and that 5,000 and 1 million that you mentioned in the previous slide, could you please?
Everything will be there. Yeah, everything will be there. This will be mentioned. Yeah. Oh, this is a part of all the.
Suhail.
Yeah.
The slides of tipping off, if you can go back to it.
I think they changed this penalty. So I need to confirm this. I think it was previously it was 6 months, but now they have made it to 1 year. That I will confirm. I just need to confirm because there are so many penalties, so I don't remember exactly. I'll confirm and I'll update you on that.
And I have one more doubt that, once company incorporations, we did it from our side, then there will be how long, will be the time for the, for these compliances for the AML things?
Okay, so You mean that you have a customer who established a company through you?
Yeah.
For the next
So
5
is-
years, you have to maintain the record of those documents and details that you have collected from the customer.
Okay, for 5 years.
Yes.
Oh.
Any other question, Ms. Aida? Mr. Ishwar, any other question?
No, thank
From
you.
my side, yeah, thank you. Anyone's having any more questions? It seems it's clear.
Okay. So there are different types of penalties. The imprisonment starts, I need to confirm, as I said, if it is 6 months, but up to 10 years, it can go. And the penalty is from 100,000 to 5 million dirham. The ministry can implement either one of this penalty or both the penalty can be implemented for non-compliances. Then that's it from my side.
Suhail, for
Yes, Ms.
the
Aida.
Ministry of Economy start from 50,000 to 5 million.
Okay. So I think that 50,000 was for tipping off. That I need to confirm first.
No. This is from Ministry of Economy starting from 50,000 to 5 million.
Yeah, but we need to check because the federal law number 20 of 2018 and then the cabinet decision number 10 of 2019, they got updated. And in that update, they have changed the laws and regulations. And they brought about changes to not only to the laws and regulation, but also to the amount of penalties. So that I will share the list, and anyone who wants to know about it, I will. You can share it with them.
Sure.
Okay, so this is it from my side. I will share with you a questionnaire. You can share with the participants who are part of your team, and they should answer it. And then you should keep the answers to those questions in your record, and at the same time, you should collect the acknowledgement from them for the training. So you can keep it in your record that you will show to the Ministry of Economy once they come for the inspection and ask you if you have given the training to the staff or not.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I will share with you the questionnaire.
Okay. It will be a link like online questionnaire.
I will ask my IT team if they can create a link. Otherwise, I will share with you a questionnaire. Yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise,
Okay,
I will
sure.
share with you the
Absolutely.
questionnaire, and you can ask your team to create it for you.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
better if your team do it, because if my team is doing it, then it will come to us. It will not
The
come
results,
to you.
yes, exactly.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
better to send it to me so I can do it here.
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thanks a
Okay.
lot. Anyone is
Take care.
having
See
any
you tomorrow.
question? No questions. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.